Oh boy!
And a first-time member. I don't know how we went this long without having Wes Durham on. We've had your partner on, Luganville, because he's like one of the.
Oh jeez!
Him and Brando are like on our Mount Rushmore of regular.
Of course, Brando's on your Mount Rushmore.
Well, you got to get Timmy B in there too.
Big Daddy B. Got to have Big Daddy B show up.
Yes, never short of opinions. Tim Brando usually starts by throwing a diatribe at our employer, our other employer.
Yes, I'm sure.
Which, of course, I just sit there and don't say a word as he goes off. But
right.
I don't think you and I will do that. But
no.
I know you've got plenty of thoughts on a lot of different things. And I mentioned this before. I was thinking about this. You and I have known each other for over 20 years. I think we first met.
Longer than that.
Yeah, maybe. Shoot, I don't want to give away our age, but
you might as well.
At least 20.
If you say it starts with a 3, you're probably right.
Yeah. No, you're right. And then I remember like the first like detailed conversation when you were at Georgia Tech. Mm-hmm. There was a baseball regional in like 2003.
That's right. Yep.
And you and I were just sat there and had a long conversation. And then I think the most fun we've ever had together, because you and I are not exactly bar hopping in Atlanta, even though we both live in the same area.
Right.
The NSMA Awards, National Sportscaster of the Year. Mm-hmm. I think every year I won it in South Carolina, you won it in Georgia, and that get together of all the announcers across the country.
Yeah.
And just drinking beers and talking whatever.
Yep.
It's some of the most fun moments that I've had in this business.
Yeah, our business is I always like to say this, especially to people who are in it. You better have good friends that are doing the same thing you're doing, or else you're going to be in trouble in this business.
Yeah.
And I'm blessed to have you and dozens of others now who I consider very good friends. And it's and now I'm the board chair of the organization. Holy cow!
Holy smokes!
Yeah, which is
chairman.
Which is ridiculous, because that means I'm in charge of looking at budgets and like money and everything else that comes in, and it's insane. So, but yeah, I think this business is very unique in the light that we do something a lot of people think they want to do. Mm-hmm. We have to then convey to them it's just like a regular business. And then at the same time, the only people that truly understand the business we're in is the other people that are in it.
Right.
It's impossible. Although I have found in my, time in Atlanta, 30 years now, I have found some business people who I can connect to who don't do this for a living, who understand it. Mm-hmm. And now they understand kind of the bells and whistles and the push and pull and, all the things that come with being in the sports media in the 21st century that are, that we never would have guessed in 1998 or 2005 or any of that. Now in 2025, it's reality. So.
It's an ever evolving business, very unique, sometimes ugly, sometimes fantastic. Because we're all doing what we love. You mentioned friends. I want to facilitate a friendship here. The sharp looking dude on the left of your screen, that's JC Sherbert of 24/7 Sports. He knows a great deal about the other side of this business that we know little about, Wes. The print side and the website side. Wow. As he's had great success on that level. So he's got his own horror stories, right, JC? We got to get that mic up, though.
Oh, boy. Look out.
That's always oh, no. And he froze. And there's no mic. Well, we'll get back to Jason.
Look at that. He went 0 for 1, 0 for 2, and then out.
Boom.
Yeah.
Did I mention we record this live?
Yeah.
There's a lot of – we'll get to the introduction here later. There's a lot of things I want to talk to you about, as we're kicking off. Now. There we go.
Hey, all right. JC's in.
I'm here.
JC is in.
I have to get a new mic cord, and I did to do that this morning because I've got another podcast I have to crank out. But yeah, Wes, I was in Gainesville, Georgia.
Okay.
In 2003. I remember that was the Micah Owings era at Georgia Tech in baseball, and he was from Gainesville.
Yeah, Victor Medical, Micah Owings. Yeah, we had a lot of guys.
Yeah, I went down and watched that regional, and of course, I'm a South Carolina guy. They were in it too, so I got a chance to watch as well. And I guess that's why Mike was there. But my first memory when I realized you were a pretty doggone good play-by-play guy was in 2003. I was at a Georgia football game with a coworker. Mm-hmm. We're driving back after a long day in Athens. Thankful we made it back. But Georgia Tech was playing Florida State on the road, and Tech was up 13-0. And Florida State came back and won. But Tech, that was the Reggie Ball era.
Right.
And, man, just listening to you call that game that day was outstanding. And I always love to catch your broadcast. I grew up a Falcons fan, and just nothing but respect for the work you do and how you sound. They don't make them like you anymore. You know, I think the classics, when you listen to some of the newer guys, are kind of I don't want to say a dying breed, but it's just a different kind of sound now. But you always paint a great picture, and certainly respect your knowledge and the work you've done in this business.
I appreciate that. Those are kind words. It's been fun. I've had a lot of good fortune, been blessed in several fronts on this, and 18 years at Georgia Tech was a really good time. And, you know, all the other stuff kind of fell in behind that. And, you know, it's been interesting. The 03 game you're talking about is, I want to say that was a Saturday night game with Reggie Ball, and I think it was Chan Gailey's first visit to Tallahassee as head coach. Pretty sure it was.
Yeah. It was a night game because Georgia was at 3:30, so we were coming back. So it was night.
Yeah, that was the night they turned loose a walk-on named P.J. Daniels, who ended up who set a Georgia Tech bowl record for rushing yards and almost set an NC. He could have run for 500 yards against Tulsa in the ill-fated Humanitarian Bowl on the blue turf in Boise a couple of years later. But yeah, no, I remember that game. Yeah, Saturday night in Tallahassee. That was, you know, there's still something, and you guys know this, there's still magical places in college football. You get Lane Stadium at night, you get Tallahassee at night, you get Clemson at night. You know, we had Clemson Appalachian this past year in our ACCN package in primetime. And somebody said, what's this going to be like? I said, doesn't matter. It's Clemson at night. You know, I mean, still some of those places resonate across the country, in the Southeast especially. If they're playing at night, it's on. And so anytime you went to Tallahassee at night, it was pretty special trick for sure.
I'm glad JC mentioned that, because I need to do a better job sometimes of reminding myself when we do this or any other show that we got a lot of people in their 20s that probably they know Wes Durham with the Falcons.
Yeah, maybe TV.
ACC. They're like, why are they talking Georgia Tech? What does Wes have to do with Georgia Tech? So, and they probably, again, if you're 25,
I'm going to tell you a funny story in just a second. Go ahead. I
was going to say, if they're 25, they might not even know about the legend that is your father.
Oh yeah,
who legendary longtime voice of the Tar Heels. So
yeah.
So let me play a little bit of This Is Your Life, okay?
Okay,
and go back, since we're talking quote unquote old days.
Yeah.
Your father, Woody, legendary voice of Tar. How many years did he do?
40. He did 40.
40. I mean,
40 even. Yeah.
And as we know now, and you and I both did the radio trek for respective schools, used to work for the same company.
Yep.
That's extinct in terms of having a radio voice there for that long a time. The turnovers there, guys that are doing radio, local radio, are morphing and doing what you did, which is leave for television and sometimes national radio, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a whole other story. Like, and back then, not every game was on TV.
Correct.
So you truly identified with every game with the radio voice. He was your pilot to know what the heck was going on. Nowadays, you can have like a less than, let's just say, detailed and competent play-by-play guy who doesn't do a good job of painting the picture, because they can see it all on their phone anyway.
Right.
But so obviously it's in your blood from a very early age. You start off at different spots, but you wind up at Georgia Tech, and as you said, you're there, 18 years?
Yeah.
Voice of the Yellow Jackets. You've been the voice of the Falcons for how long?
21.
21.
Next fall will be 22 with Dave. Archie and I have been together for and look, we started together and we're probably going to finish together.
Yeah.
Next fall will be 22 years.
And I'll just say this, and I'm not just saying this because you and I are friends, but it's one of the best duos of NFL radio out there, because believe it or not, it is the NFL, but that doesn't mean they're the 32 best play-by-play and analysts. Some NFL teams, let's just say, I'll say it for you, Wes. I know these are some of your brethren. Some teams don't know how to hire. They just hire they don't have directors of broadcasting and guys that are sitting there analyzing tapes and whatnot. They make hires for very curious reasons, and it's not the best play-by-play guys. It's not the most professional sounding. It's not the most anything, but you guys clearly are. So let me set the stage with that as well. I think we don't want to get into your personal life. I mean, I've met your wife. You're happily married now for a number of years. So
sure.
Yeah, now we have the true background on Wes Durham for the 20-something-year-old. The rest of you already know. You're partnered up with one of our favorites and a regular guest on the show, Tom Luganbill, for ACC Saturday Night. I'm assuming you guys will be back on that.
We all assume in March or April that we're doing the same thing next year, don't we?
Right, we do.
Yeah. So yes, I have every reason to believe Luke and I will do the Saturday night package.
So let's
check back in August.
I know, trust me, I'm well aware. Let's start that as a jumping off point, because the SEC and the Big Ten dominate the national headlines.
Sure,
and I find myself sometimes guilty of that on this show because, look, they've right now. They are the two dominant forces in the sport. They have the two most powerful commissioners of sport, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The ACC has been in the news for a lot of different reasons.
Sure.
Okay. It's been two of its signature programs threatening to leave and being tied up in legal battles, which is finally resolved. It's been, okay, how many automatic bids are we going to get if the SEC and the Big Ten get 4?
Right.
It's been, what is the health of the league now, coming off a not so good basketball season, relatively speaking, for a league that prides itself in terrific basketball. So where is the ACC and where do you see it headed in 2025 and beyond?
Okay. I think right now the clarity of where the ACC is, Mike and JC, is probably pretty good for about 4 years, maybe 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think we're all kidding ourselves if we don't think there's going to be another landscape upheaval in 2030 or 2031. I just think that the business of college, but see, the problem I have, and you want to talk about throwing opinions, here we go.
Bring
it. The problem I have with major college athletics right now is that we're all in a hurry to get to something that we don't know will have governance and structure. We're dealing right now in a landscape that is uncontrolled. It's uncontrolled by the National Collegiate Athletic Association. It's uncontrolled by the 4 conferences who sit in a room, come up with guidelines and mileposts, and then all of a sudden activate it. Okay? So we have to decide, follow me here now, we have to decide if we're going to stay under the NCAA shell or we're going to create a new shell for the Power 4 and, say, 6 to 12 other schools. Okay? I think it's just that simple. Because the rules for the 6 to 12 schools and the other Power 4 schools, even some of those institutions are going to have a difficult time playing by the financial game that is being set. So, like, news is coming out every day of schools that are going to opt in to the $20.5 million in the House settlement, right? You guys are reading it. I'm reading it. We all see this. Well, truth is, not everybody's going to be able to opt in, okay? All these schools, and let's take FBS football, not just the Power 4. We'll take all of FBS. All of these schools in FBS are not going to be able to opt into into the 20.5 for the House settlement. That may not be possible financially. Okay. I don't know if you've seen, some schools are getting ready to raise student fees. I think Virginia Tech has just released a story. They're going to end up, Andy Bitter, who used to work for The Athletic, now works for Tech Sideline. I think it's a website in Blacksburg. Andy's just talked about Virginia Tech has approved a student fee increase that's going to allow them to fund $9 million more into athletics. Okay. So if that happens, then what is Virginia Tech telling you? Virginia Tech's telling you they don't have enough to go fully off the hog, 20.5 into the House settlement. They had to find another way to get it. Tennessee, I think, added a 10% entertainment fee to their season ticket price, right? For NIL, well, that's actually House settlement money or their version of it. Danny White could clarify it better than I could. So you're starting to see little things that indicate to you schools are having to reach for money. Okay. Remember when we came out of the pandemic and Mark Emmert, who probably handed out waivers better than anybody I've ever seen for things he didn't control, he handed out eligibility waivers. And the first thing you heard from ADs were along the lines of, we didn't have enough money to budget or cover these scholarships because they were doubling up on scholarships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Remember all that? That was 4 years ago. So now we're hustling to the 12, 14, 16 team playoff. And I love the playoff. Don't get me wrong. I think it's great. I think it was terrific for college athletics and terrific for major college football. But why are we running to this nirvana without some sort of rules? In other words, one of the reasons the NCAA basketball tournament is so successful, a television event, it's the 3 weeks we all care about college basketball across the country. It's successful because of the stories that develop from it. St. Peter's, Fairleigh Dickinson, Florida Atlantic, to go with the brand names, right? In college football, we're saying, okay, SMU, you can go. Boise, you can go, but we're going to stack the deck on you like the basketball tournament. We're going to have multi-bid leagues. We're going to have this, that, and the other. I'm fine with saying, let's just have the committee. Let's develop. As long as the committee is more transparent about what they're doing, I'm fine with having 12 or 14 or 16. Place cards at the table are a little disturbing to me. And even the 2 the ACC gets or the 2 the Big 12 gets, let alone the 4 the SEC and the Big 10 get. And I get they hold the money. I'm fully aware of how the business works. That's my bigger concern. The second part of it is we got to have some rules and structure here, not just in the college football playoff. We got to have it for the Power 4 leagues, guys. I mean, we're getting those commissioners in the room to talk, but they're talking about making money in the football playoff. They're not resetting what I think is the more important piece. We all can't afford to pay the going rate on, hypothetically, JC, a quarterback. The going rate on a quarterback, it's incumbent upon a quarterback. Let's say it's a high-level college QB who might not be a first-round pick. He should not go to the draft. If he's not a first-round pick, he should not go to the draft. He should stay and take his NIL money the next year. Well, what's his NIL money going to be? Pretty soon his NIL money is going to be so exorbitant that he's not going to want to go to the NFL. He's going to want to file for waivers for extra years or whatever, or he's going to want to hit a junior college out of high school, go junior college so he can get the year back at the end and play 5 years or 6 years because he went to a junior college. I just think we've lost control on the administrative piece of this by building what the big prize is at the end of the year. That's all. I think we've just got to think about the long term rather than the race to, how many teams can we put in and who gets the bigger blocks and things like that. That's a long answer to say I love the college football playoff. But remember, Mike and JC, only 24 million people watched Ohio State, Notre Dame. Maybe 27 if you add all the digital metrics in, okay? The Bills and Chiefs was 51 million people watched, okay? The Super Bowl was 127 million. Let's don't kid ourselves now. College football is the number 2 sport in terms of television viewership in the country, okay? But the National Football League is a beast. So we don't need to play the first round of the college football playoff opposite any NFL game on the planet.
No.
Period.
That was a mistake.
Yeah, you mentioned that. It wasn't like a guy like Carson Beck, to me, it's a very interesting case study because I feel like he regressed on the field last year quite a bit. He's going into a program that I love, but every year there's something, players.
Are you talking about Miami?
Yeah, Miami. I love Miami, but
the corner of drama and circumstance.
They get it, and when you're a millionaire and still a young person, and you're down there, I don't know how you get better, but it's interesting because he's made so much money at Georgia and now Miami.
Right.
He could say, hey, I'm not taking the hits at that level. My body's in good shape now. I'm getting out while it's good and be fine. And everybody was talking about it. So that's a case study, like you said, where some of these quarterbacks, especially, which are worth, if you look at the impact of transfer quarterbacks, like Cam Ward at Miami last year, they wouldn't have been 10-2 with that. I mean, they are very valuable. Going back to Joe Burrow and Kyler Murray and those guys. Mm-hmm. At Georgia Tech, Haynes King.
Haynes King's been incredible.
At North Carolina, had Max Johnson not gotten hurt.
What about at Syracuse with Kyle McCord?
Oh, my goodness. It's crazy. But I think you're right, because you accumulate that much wealth, and then, you're not the top pick in the draft. I mean, why still do it? Football's a hard game on your body. So I totally understand where you're coming from there. And, as far as the governance and things like that goes, it does seem like a sort of a mad dash. And it's real kind of incongruent. You talked about the rev share and colleges trying to come up with that cash. These are all nonprofits. They spend and budget. That's why the pandemic, most of them were 70 million in the hole. Right. Because they spend, they're out the ticket money. They spend every penny they get. They budget for every penny they get. They support other sports, things like that. Sometimes they get back to the university. Here's how bad it is. Ohio State and Texas are two of the richest athletic departments in America. Ohio State was, and this was because of some coaching buyouts and things, 38 million in the hole, right?
Correct.
Ross Bjork, 38 million in the hole. Texas, another rich athletic department, went up on their ticket prices to fund this stuff.
Yep.
And so if they're looking for extra revenue, it's hitting the entire middle class of college football quite a bit.
So then here's the next part. When is a school, and again, remember how this is all handled. Presidents and chancellors in a room, right? No ADs, no football people. This is all the headline CEOs of the academic houses. So when is somebody going to sit in a room and do one of two things? One, hey, guys, we can't afford to do it anymore. We're out. That's number one. Or number two, when is another president or chancellor going to sit in a room and go, hey, school X across the table, you guys aren't meeting the salary cap. You guys aren't meeting this. You guys aren't meeting that. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to cut you all loose, essentially fire you from our conference, and we'll replace you with somebody else. Now, the minute a chancellor or president fires another guy who's a chancellor or president from a league, that's going to be unbelievable. The minute a school quits because they can't afford to do it and just throws their arms up and says, we're getting so far off course from what our mission is as a school, that's going to be news. And when one precedent of those is set, there'll be others to follow, in my opinion.
Well, while we're on the subject of economics, I have two concerns, and both of these circle back to the league you are knee-deep in right now. Number one, I don't know how it's sustainable, and this is why Florida State and Clemson were so desperate to get out of the ACC. It's not like life wasn't good for them in the ACC, or they just felt they had to be a part of the SEC or the Big Ten. I think it's just they're simply looking at the economics of the deal,
right,
and seeing the fact that the TV money is on a crash course to be double the SEC and the Big Ten, double of what the ACC and the Big 12 bring in. How is that sustainable if you want to remain competitive? And then the ACC's new, I give the ACC and Jim Phillips credit on one hand. They are trying to manage, in some cases, maybe an untenable situation, which you have two premier programs that are basically telling the world we desperately want to get out of your league.
Right.
So we have to tilt the scale economically. We have to give them more money based on success and even ratings, which I've never thought was imaginable. But then if I'm Wake Forest, if I'm Duke, if I'm these other programs, Boston College, heck, even Virginia Tech, like at some point,
Cal,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. At some point, they may be saying, you know what? The Big 12 doesn't look so bad right now because we clearly are at an economic disadvantage in our own league.
No question. And I would, this is another time for another show. I think Clemson and Florida State look the same on paper. It read differently in some places for me. And philosophically, I think Clemson and Florida State were actually after two different things. I actually think Clemson wanted to stay all along. I think Clemson just wanted to restructure, which is what they got.
Right.
Florida State said a lot of big huff puffy things standing on the hood of cars. But I'm just not sure Florida State ever realized the lack of value they were bringing to the table, and that no conference was going to be saddled with the get-out price. So, we'll see. 5 years from now, as we said at the top. Here's the other part, Mike, I would offer on this. I don't think that the small private schools, even the ones with the ginormous endowments, are absolved of this. I think everybody, and I mean, JC just pointed out, Texas and Ohio State are having to retighten the belt a little bit here. When Texas and Ohio State have to retighten the belt, that's the top of the food chain, in my opinion. Because if I recall correctly, reportedly, nobody ever really knows for sure in the world we're living in, which is another problem. Texas and Ohio State were two of the what, half dozen or seven schools, JC, that were paying well over $15 million in NIL in football last year.
Ohio State was 20.
Okay.
And I'd be the main Texas schools, and really now Texas Tech, because they got a tech bro that just sold his company that's a booster for
Texas,
billions.
who by the way played pro football with Ben Hartsock in Indianapolis. That guy was a pro football player with Ben Hartsock.
No doubt. And so
I told Hartsock, you made a bad financial decision. You could have gotten in with that cat.
No doubt.
You wouldn't have to be doing that damn Sirius XM trick. So,
Yeah, I mean, but the two Texas schools, A&M and Tech, they spend over, probably around 20, I would guess. But surprisingly enough, places like Georgia and Alabama are kind of in the 12 or 13.
That's right.
Based on information I've gathered. Like you said, it's hard because then there's all these people that assume, well, this is a good roster, so I assume they're paying this much, and that's it doesn't add up like maybe we would think. But yeah, both of those schools paid out good money. Ohio State sponsors 36 varsity sports. Texas is a school that aspires for greatness in everything, like Ohio State does, not just football. And if they're trying to find revenue, that's very telling.
And we haven't even gotten to the part yet, Mike. I was talking about schools quitting or somebody firing somebody. Before we get to that, don't forget we're going to get the drama of a school saying, you know what, we're not going to play this sport anymore.
Oh, I think that's right around the corner.
And then we're going to get a lawsuit behind it. And we haven't, by the way, also clarified how Title IX works in this either. See, that's what I mean. We're running to this race. We're trying to hit this tape on something. And yet we're forgetting to take the steps. We're forgetting to take the soft steps to understand, hey, look, we got to account for Title IX. We got to do this. We got to do it. I mean, because you make a misstep with Title IX, and then all of a sudden now you're talking about the federal funds of the institution.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those are also hanging in the balance anyway. So anything on the periphery that is of some semblance or structure to an institution beyond athletics comes into play when you start talking about the amount of money we're now talking about. And to JC's point, Georgia used to pay the athletic department. Am I right, JC? The athletic department used to pay the school back at the end of football season for like security and also, I mean, somewhere in the neighborhood of $12 million, I was once told.
There's a lot of bookkeeping that goes on internally at institutions, and all of them are different. They all have different methods. Some schools fund athletic scholarships out of the university's general fund. Some schools use athletic money to fund those scholarships. Some schools have privatized, like Georgia, as a privatized booster club.
Yep.
Some schools, the booster club is an arm of the institution. And then there's state laws about unionization and stuff like that if they go to employment, they're going to have to get past. You're right. I mean, the horse is ahead of the saddle here.
Yeah,
in quite a big way. I don't know about football specifically is what's bringing in the money, and also what's the rest of the sports. I think you're just kind of along for the ride. Here's what I was thinking about this morning. The NFL is set up for parity, like
correct.
That league. And so
absolutely,
you're talking about a very unique sport in football. It takes a lot of people, a lot of money to compete, a lot of resources. Go below and look at the high school level, and think about high school football across the country. Those most all states are divided up into different classifications with playoffs based on what? Resources. It's all based on our student body size, and that inevitably normally means more resources.
Well, how do we get to 7A in Georgia? We got 7A in Georgia because schools got more resources.
Right. Exactly. Gwinnett County is always going, the Gwinnett County mega schools out there.
The University of Beaufort.
University of Beaufort.
And Beaufort's a smaller school, but you do have smaller schools like that, private schools, Beaufort, Gainesville, that they have resources too in different ways.
Carrollton.
Carrollton.
Yeah.
You know,
Joey King's got an indoor facility. Florida wish they had a few years ago.
Hey, the city school concept in the state of Georgia is great for high school football.
My God.
I learned that living there. But so at all different levels, you have, rules and setups in place based on resources, because the NFL, it's the resources here's your cap. Here's what you can do. Spend it how you'd like. But
that's the part I can't understand, guys. I can't understand how we didn't get to a cap on this. How right out of the gate didn't we go say, you know what? You got $7 million for your football team.
I have a theory on that.
Okay.
Because everything that, and I realize the NCAA runs every other sport, the other 88. College football is more of the conference has said, no, we got this. We don't need your help, Indy. Thank you. But we'll take the money. However, in terms of the organization and the structure, everything that the NCAA has tried to do in a courtroom, they've gotten dunked on.
And lost
badly. Like peak Sean Kemp dunking on a 6'2" point guard in the NBA dunked on. And so I think they believe if they try to put any cap on these things, that somebody could file a lawsuit and say that's not free enterprise.
All right, but then why are they here? That brings me back to the end game on this. And I've asked, and
I'm not sure they're going to be here much longer, Wes.
Well, I'm not either. And and I've asked guys, and I've done it all off the record. How are they still in existence? And I'm not just asking Joe on the corner now. I've been asking like commissioners, ADs.
Right.
There are one or two presidents who I've had a chance to spend a few minutes with going, how in the world are they still in existence here? And I like Charlie Baker. I think Charlie Baker is a nice man. He's not nearly the guy Mark Emmert was. Mark Emmert, at the end of the day, when they write the book on the NCAA, Mark Emmert is the guy that ran the place into the iceberg. I mean, literally ran it into the iceberg.
Yeah.
In terms of what it ultimately ends up being. But I still think we've got smart people, Mike and JC. That's the thing that concerns me about this. We've got the right people in AD chairs and in football and to a degree in basketball who can sit around a table and govern this. Because it's like I tell people all the time now, and I speak to these business groups in August before football starts. Happiest people involved in college football are retired coaches, okay? They love being retired. Absolutely no chance they're going back. They don't want to be a part of it. That's part of the reason they got out in some cases. Others just timing work their way. The second happiest people are television executives. Because every Saturday they can program 15 hours of this on any channel, and people watch it. Now, they watch it in different ways. They watch it in different terms and links, but they know every Saturday it's going to happen.
The best description of the NCAA I've heard, I can't take credit for it, and I don't know who coined it first. I know Rick Neuheisel uses this term a lot, and some other people. They are an event planner. If you want somebody to run your championships, they're great at it.
Look at what's going on now.
They're terrific. Like from basketball to baseball to wrestling, they do a good job event planning the championships.
Totally agree.
But football wants no part of it. Football's like, you sit over there at the kiddie table. We got this, and we are not sharing this money like we do in basketball with you. We are going to dominate this money, and we're going to take the biggest piece of pie possible. So I don't think, Wes, we're going to live in a world where the NCAA gets to say, no, let us organize this whole thing. Let us be the event planner for the new college football playoff and the new system. I just think there's too much money involved, and people like Greg Sankey, Tony Petitti, they don't want someone else to be running it. They want to run it on their own.
And quite frankly, they're right to think that, but it has to be, to JC's point about parity in the NFL and yours, Mike, they're talking about the NFL model, but they're not creating the NFL structure. Okay? The NFL
now Wes got muted.
Wes
hit the mute button. JC, are you controlling Wes's mic?
No. It should be down at the bottom of your screen. It says mute, stop cam.
Okay. There we go. Okay.
I got my little module here, and I hit the wrong button.
It's all good.
The NFL they have a CBA, union ownership, all that. There's a way you can do this in college, but slow down the process for just a minute and take a breath and start to figure out what it is. That's the problem I've got an issue with.
So one last thing on economics.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the two are tethered together. If you want to really know about what's going on in college football, you can't just ignore the economic equation because it's massive and it dominates everything. Let's go back to the original question that got us down this rabbit hole, which is how in the world, because we use Power 4 as if they're all equal, which they're clearly not. You could compare the Big 12 coffers to the Big 10 financial coffers, and it's night and day. So how do the schools? I'm just throwing ACC at you because obviously, and I know, and I'm not trying to pigeonhole you into one league. You can talk any league, but on the ACC side of things, I don't want to see the demise of the ACC. I don't think most fans of one league or another want to cannibalize the other, and you still need competition. You still need other parts of the country to be successful. You still need other leagues to be successful. But how are you going to do it when you're literally bringing in one half the revenues of the Big Two?
It's a great question, and I don't know that anybody's got a great answer. For me, it's going to have to come through the same reason you had the rise of football in the 90s and early 2000s. You're going to have to – your coaching is good. Even with some of the turnover that's occurred, your coaching is still really good. I think you've got terrific young coaches like Brent Key at Georgia Tech, I think, is doing a heck of a job. I think Fran Brown at Syracuse has done a great job. I do believe that Mike Norvell has got a really good program at Florida State. I think they made some calculated errors following the season 2 years ago and got smoked out. And I do believe he's one on it. There are a lot of people that get smoked out by the portal. Yeah. I don't follow recruiting. Mike, you know that. I never have. I leave it up to guys who can do it like JC and Luganville and all these other people because it just makes my head spin. But I would tell you this, the portal and the high school balance have to work. And like Texas A&M 2 years ago, I think Florida State got burned by it this year. You got to spend the right money on the right players. And we're seeing it. It's much more focused in basketball. When you put a lot of money on a bad player, you see it right there 30-some times a year. In football, they still wear a helmet and run around. You're not sure they're getting a block. But if it's a bad quarterback, a bad running back, bad wide receiver, bad defensive tackle, you see it a little bit more. But I think that the ACC's got to do it with coaching. It's got to do it in player evaluation. I'm one of the people incredibly fascinated, and this is another show for another time. Bill Belichick, I'm completely fascinated by that.
I was bringing that up in just a second.
Yeah, we don't have enough time. The idea of the intangibles only increases in a place like the ACC and the Big 12. That's the easiest way to put it. I think the Big 12 and the ACC are in an interesting spot together, and I'm of the belief that Jim Phillips and Brett Yormark maybe ought to spend some more time together, because I think if you're going to be aligned that way by the two big powers, Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, then you ought to take it and make the best that you have.
Totally agree.
It's the one reason in closing that I've got a problem with the allotments in the expanded playoff, because what happens the year is the Big 12 and the ACC going to qualify for those at-larges every year. Those at-larges become premiums. If the SEC and the Big 10 are going to get 8 spots in, let's say, a 14 or 16-team playoff, and the ACC and the Big 12 are going to get 4, well, then how are the other 4 set up outside of the one G5, right? I mean, are those going to the SEC every year? Are they going to go to the Big 10 every year? Because I'll tell you this, and I would say this if it were the other way around. The ACC and the SEC, or the SEC and the Big 10, what they don't want to do is dilute the product. You dilute, and no offense. I mean, look, there are plenty of good teams, and you can do it the right way, but don't dilute the product. If you dilute the product, America's going to start noticing.
Yeah,
and they won't watch.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's also a tough sell if the same 5 teams are playing for the title every year.
Yeah.
So we don't have that in basketball because older is better. But in football, it's still the teams that are recruiting the best, and then they can sprinkle in the right portal guys because they got the most resources and the most tradition and everything else.
Yeah.
And so it's just painfully predictable.
Exactly. And that's the part, I think, again, if we slow down just a touch here, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying don't run pell-mell to do it. Let's sit and look at it. Can I see the 12-team thing play out for 3 years? maybe see 14 play out for 3 and then go to 16? Or do I just have to do 12 for 2 and then run like hell to 16?
Follow the money.
Oh, I know it's there. And by 30, we're going to be there. I mean, by 30, we're playing 16 teams.
Oh, there's no question.
Yeah.
There's no question. All right, we got to at least get one like on the field question. ACC, give me some teams that you like that actually can be a player. Of course, last year you had SMU. That was not a shocker to the people that host this show. We warned people SMU was going to be a factor right away, and they obviously were. But give us some storylines you're looking for on the field for the ACC.
The return of Clemson to prominence nationally. I think last year at the end of the year, we've hyped up Cade Klubnik a lot in the last couple seasons. And he started off woefully last year against Georgia. He got better. And then I didn't think he had a particularly good game against South Carolina. He was pretty good in the championship game. And then, Texas was Texas last year in Austin. I thought, the bigger issue was what they were defensively, and they fixed that. I thought for the last 3 or 4 years, it's ironic in this light, they've had some of the similar problems that Florida State had for Jimbo Fisher. Clemson's not been great in either offensive or defensive line in the last couple of years, and people just kind of say, well, it's Clemson. They're going to be good. Nah, I'm not so sure about that. Their back end, in my opinion, JC, has been a lot better than their front. I mean, their back end has been terrific.
They have some guys up front. Peter
Woods is a player, but he didn't have a lot of help.
No,
he wasn't healthy. It was tough.
When you have to slide him out too, and he's not doing in the interior, and then they got Parker. And it surprised me because their recruiting fell off at receiver and offensive skill quite a bit.
Yes, it did.
And that's the key to Klubnik is those guys, the 2 freshmen, Wesco and Moore.
Mm-hmm.
And then Antonio Williams is coming into his own, and they're all back next year. I mean,
they got a transfer they're really excited about.
Yeah, lethal passing offense. Yeah, the big kid from one of the directional Missouris.
Yep.
And that's Clemson. That's what we know Clemson as is those big receivers that can run and all that. They continue to recruit on paper well on defense. And they had some players, but it just wasn't as congruent. And I think over time we realized they missed Brent Venables a little bit.
Yeah, and I like TA coming there. I'm a Tom Allen guy. I think he's very good at what he does, and I think he'll be a home run for him. So let's take Clemson, Mike. I am of the belief that Jeff Brom will ultimately win the money game at Louisville that puts him in the mix. I think Jeff Brom.
I like Brom.
He's a terrific coach. Terrific coach, and I think he's done a hell of a job. And I think Miller Moss is going to be a factor there. I do. I just think Miller Moss is a fit, much like Tyler Shuck was a season ago. Shuck stayed healthy, helped them. Miller Moss stays healthy. I think Jeff Brom's a little bit of a QB whisperer.
Yeah, I do.
And the third team is I'll stay with you guys on this. I think Rhett Lashley and SMU aren't going anywhere. They've done well in the portal. Oh, my God. They got Kevin Jennings back. They got a running back they like. They've got offensive linemen. Rhett Lashley is a hell of a football coach, period. End of sentence. Stop right there. Just a good football coach. I will sign up for Miami, but I don't know how long I'll stay signed up.
Welcome
you're
to the
you're
club.
Not going to get Cam Ward production 2 years in a row.
No chance. But you know what you do have?
Unreal.
Yeah, and here's the thing. You busted 2 years ago when you had the defensive talent to be that team.
Right.
Last year, you busted in 2 games you should have never lost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I mean, you should have never lost the game in Atlanta, and you should have never lost the game at Syracuse. Ever, 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 ever lose the game at Syracuse because you know what's on the table. So then, at some point, this has to kick in. I'm with JC. I think Beck downgraded last year. I think a lot of it was off the field. I think a lot of it affected Georgia as a team on that side of the ball as well. And I think that's why he's in the portal and not the draft. And I think at the end of the day, Miami has put enough pieces now on both sides of the ball to get it home. Here's the good news for the ACC. And this is the last thing you need to know. The ACC is playing real football games in the first 2 weeks of the season. If they perform well in those real football games, and they're across the board now, it's not just one school. If they perform well in those games out the gate, the league will be in the national conversation the rest of the fall.
Right.
If they don't in the first 2 weeks, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. similar to November, December in basketball.
The key to me with the ACC, because the footprint's good for football, man. I mean, you look at the NFL draft numbers, the ACC puts more guys in the draft than the Big Ten most years. Yep. I don't know about the expanded Big Ten, but the old Big Ten, they definitely did.
Sure.
Florida talent, you got access to Texas talent now, Virginia, North Carolina, all those states are good. I think the key to that league is the schools that can be good
need to be good.
You don't need Duke going 9-3 anymore. I mean, I think the Wake Forest run under Grove and Clawson, although I like the hire they made, I think that's probably coming to an end in this new era.
Yeah,
and that's what's hurt them is you have these little upstarts, the Boston College back in the day when they had Matt Ryan, and then the schools like Virginia and Virginia Tech are in the middle of talent. I mean, we've seen George Welsh win at Virginia. We've seen Al Groh win for a while there. We've seen Virginia Tech be a powerhouse. Pitt won a national championship back. They're in the middle of talent.
Yeah.
And North Carolina is probably just like they're similar to Arizona State in that they're a sleeping giant in football. State of North Carolina is going to have 12 million people in it soon.
Yeah.
That's directly related to your in-state football talent base. These schools have a shot. Georgia Tech's getting back. So that's the key to me with the ACC. The schools that have the ability to be good, they need to be good. And if they're not, the league's going to be down. And I think that's the key.
You need Virginia Tech to be what it was,
and Miami and Georgia.
Brands need to be brands, guys.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Tech's coming back. I mean, Haynes King's a warrior.
Haynes King is unbelievable.
They're coming back. I think that Monday night game, and it's kind of funny because Deion Sanders, when he took the Colorado job, their first game was against TCU, and they won. And the Tar Heels opened with TCU on Labor Day night. And that was a big win for Deion at Colorado. It'll be a big win for Bill Belichick.
Yeah, and how about Brent Key plays in Boulder to start the year?
There you go. Yeah,
on a Friday night.
Yeah,
that'll be a fun one.
And that'll be a fun one. Atlanta got Syracuse, Tennessee, Virginia Tech, South Carolina, back-to-back, 2 ACC, SEC matchups. Notre Dame goes to Miami on that Sunday night. I mean, there is a lot of real football. And I didn't even mention Clemson, LSU. So that's going to be
or Alabama, Florida State.
I always forget about that one because I intentionally forgot about Florida State last year. Well, it made me sad because
they never got home from Ireland.
I mean, that was I loved watching that game because I'm kind of a closet Georgia Tech guy anyway. And
bless your heart.
I saw bless your heart. And me and my buddy were sitting there celebrating week 0. It was all the game on, but even down to like half of their stadium was blocked off. It looked like it was like a high school championship game. Most games, I forgot about them. But I'll tell you this: people that want to just dismiss them. Watch that game with Bama. Watch it because they'll be back. And I'm with you. Mike Norvell's a good coach.
He's a really good coach.
And Gus Malzahn can flat out call offense if he has the right guys. And I think they will.
They had misses in the portal, and sometimes you live by it, you die by it. They had it was their key 2 years ago. It was their demise a year ago.
That's the best way to put it.
A lot of big names, not a lot of substance in that portal class.
All hat, no cattle, JC.
We'll let you out on this. We do talk some hoops on this show, especially this time of year. Okay. Other than Duke, give me an ACC team that you feel can have a successful run.
When's this going to air?
Well, technically right away, and then eventually.
I don't feel – I got to be honest. If Cooper Flagg comes back, I think Duke can make the Final Four and win the whole thing.
I do too.
Stop. Now, Clemson, the loss of Dylan Hunter to the broken hand, they're going to have to – Chauncey Wiggins, the kid from Grayson in Atlanta, is going to have to be consistent in the postseason for them to get back to where they were a year ago. Louisville just got completely train wrecked on the draw. Okay? I think Louisville is so much better than an 8. That might be just enough juice for Pat Kelsey to flip the entire power grid switch. And I wouldn't want to be – and Auburn's had a great year, and I like Auburn a lot. I love Janai Broome. I love the way he plays. Baker Mazzara is a bit of a different taste for me.
He's a wild card.
Oh, he's a wild card. He's a flagrant 2 waiting to happen. But I like their team. I really do. Bruce is, the ultimate showman in today's college basketball. But Louisville is scary because Louisville is about Louisville. They're not. I mean, they scout, they do all the things you want them to do, but they are so energy driven by their own stuff. And Kelsey's done a remarkable job there. Outside of Duke, I'm actually going to tell you Louisville.
Yeah,
because Rain Smith healthy. Rain Smith is a game changer in this tournament because his ability to hit shots. You have to pay attention to Edwards and Hadley and James Scott on the pick and roll, and certainly what Chucky Hepburn does. But there's not many shooters in the tournament like Rain Smith.
Yeah. I can't say enough about the job Coach Kelsey has done.
It's amazing.
In a short amount of time. And they are not lacking for NIL resources with basketball.
Louisville had a federal savings and loan up there now. They were old school. Yeah. They went and just did it like you're supposed to do it.
Heck yeah.
And look, I've made the drive, as Mike probably has, many times between Louisville and Lexington. That's not.
Oh, yeah.
That's right down the road. It's a home game.
Oh, yeah.
At Auburn, now they're going to, because that's right up. You just go to Atlanta and then hit 75. I mean, it's a haul. I think Auburn will show up too.
Sure.
And there's only 20,000 seats in Rupp Arena, but man, you're talking. I mean, I think it's a tough draw for Louisville. I also think it's a very tough draw for the number 1 overall seed to have to go into what will be a road environment, assuming Louisville wins, and beat that team and that coach. I watched Pat Kelsey coach for a long time at Winthrop and College of Charleston. That guy gets it, and he's a stone cold winner, and they're not going to back down. So that's going to be interesting. Second round. I'd take Louisville too.
Somebody asked me Monday morning what I thought about Louisville and Auburn. I said, well, there'll be a fist fight for tickets in the street outside Rupp Arena.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there'll be people in like red fighting people in orange in the street. Let me have that ticket. No, I've got this ticket, and then somebody will beat the hell out of somebody else and take their ticket. I mean. You guys know what I mean. Those are two fervent fan bases that just want a piece of the action.
Well, and it's incredible, Wes, for years I have fought this. Well, if you're a basketball school, you can't be a football school. If you're a football school, you can't be a basketball school. I did called a number of games at Auburn before Bruce Pearl, where it was beyond. There's got to be a stronger word in the dictionary than a moribund program. I mean, it was depressing to go do a game at Auburn. And it had that feel of they are just never going to be relevant. Bruce comes in there and just does what Bruce does. Yeah. And now Auburn basketball fans, they don't just pack up that arena. They travel. Oh, yeah. They're doing the Kentucky thing, and they're going to games. So to your point, they'll be out there. I promise you.
Street, man.
There will be plenty of that. Listen, I know we've kept you long, and we definitely won't wait as long before we have you back. Love having you. I tell people all the time, one of my favorite things in doing talk radio was kind of, running sidekick with you and Tony Barnhart, who we had on the show a few weeks ago. Barnhart and Durham. I always call Atlanta the Mecca of college football, but for years and years, it was underserved because all the guys on radio want to talk about was the Falcons and the Braves, right? Yep. And you guys came in and said, the hell with that. We're going to give you a really good couple hours of every day. And I still never forget, we were at SEC Media Days, which you and I have been to more than a few of those.
I call those union labor meetings, JC, because everybody's invited. They're allowed one vote, and they move on.
Right.
You never see them the rest of the year.
You remember the one year at the Winfrey Hotel, there's a piano just sitting there on Media Row, and the dude from Leonard Skinner just walks up there and starts playing piano.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell?
Don't forget the Winfrey motto, where European elegance meets Southern hospitality. Don't ever forget the motto of the Winfrey Hotel.
Don't forget the year where I said, I think we were on the air, and I said, I don't know, Wes, about this crowd here, these non-football fans, but SEC Media Days has gotten a little leggy this year. Like, it was like all these 5'9" supermodels were walking through the hallway, and you got all these schlebs doing talk radio, just gawking at them. Remember that?
Since this is a podcast, let me tell you this. The SEC Media Day at the Winfrey, thank you, where European elegance meets Southern hospitality. I say the whole thing. Oh, my God. That was the first time I ever realized there was some sort of PD medicine available on ED medicine available on the market, because to Mike's point, JC, there was a leggy walking through the Winfrey on Radio Row handing out samples.
That's right.
That's awesome.
That's right.
If Munson had been there, it would have been the greatest scene in America.
Oh my
God! What is she doing? Oh my!
Look at the talent here.
Oh,
We're
God.
European elegance.
Look at this.
Oh,
my God.
these poor schleps on radio are like, this is my fantasy.
Oh my God!
If only it was always like this covering sports.
Geez.
But the other thing I remember was when peak Saban, and you got back. This is back when some coaches actually would do interviews with you. Now hardly anybody does, and Saban hardly did any of them. And you got 100 stations going. Nick, can you give us a few? And with the cachet of Barnhart,
oh yeah,
you and I had Nick Saban come to our table and give us 15 solid minutes, as only Nick can. I was like, this is pretty damn cool. So that was a lot of fun. Barnhart and Durham was. I know it's now in the archives, but man, that was great stuff back in the day.
We had fun.
Wes, we always appreciate it, man. Keep up the outstanding work in this off season. I know you do a lot of great stuff, kind of periphery stuff for ACC Network, not just calling the games. A lot of great interviews and everything else, and people can catch that. And of course, we'll catch you again closer to football season. Thank you, Wes.
Thanks,
Take care,
Wes.
guys. See you soon.
You got it.
Be well.
Take care, Wes Durham.